Fellas, we are back breaking down a Dynasty Startup Mock Draft. We're going to do Superflex PPR half tight end premium as we usually do. A lot of you one quarterback bros are going to be really mad at us because we never do one quarterback drafts. I swear the next one we will do will be a one quarterback one, but I will get this thing going as we usually do by dropping the link into the chat. In the meantime, Danny, what's up? How you doing? Very happy, both of us right now. We got our first edition of our draft guide live on Flock Fantasy. So, of course, if you guys want our opinions on all these rookie prospects that I'm sure everybody's, talking about, everybody's thinking about right now, we do have our top 30 overall ranks in the draft guide. We do have all the player cards and the comps and all the write-ups done for those guys. And then excited to dig into more guys leading up to the NFL Combine. And then, of course, about a week and a half from now, we're going to be deep in the Combine talking athletic testing and weigh-ins and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's going to be talking about how your favorite X wide receiver sleeper ran fast in spandex and how he's not getting the buzz he deserves. Like, we're going to hear all those tweets on the timeline after people start running. But I mean, that's the beauty of the time we're in. Until the NFL draft happens in April, we're going to talk about the guys we like. We're going to talk about the guys we don't like. And it's just going to be fun breaking them down until we see where the NFL draft, the NFL teams actually value these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun time this time of year because I think this is honestly like one of my favorite times of the year personally, because we're not into prospect fatigue season yet. Like once we get into April, it's going to just get mind-numbingly annoying talking about the same guys. At this point, we're in the thick of like when it's exciting. Like all the dynasty players are excited right now. The combine marks the time that everybody kind of comes back to the pack if they took a break after the Super Bowl or took a break after the regular season or whatever the case is. We know that everybody's not as big of a degenerate as we are. So we do usually have to wait for a couple of you guys to come back. And, in terms of scheduling, our first edition of our rookie draft guide is out now on the site. Again, flockfantasy.com/FSE. The second edition will be out March 15th, which will include all the combine information and the other 20 prospects to round out our top 50. And then after the draft, or maybe right before the draft, we'll have like a superlatives in there, like our sleepers, our values, our busts, maybe write like a small article within the draft guide about that. And then after our second edition is out March 15th, we're going to start doing film breakdowns on the site. Me and you are going to go through and break down, 10 to 15 clips of each prospect and talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, kind of what we're looking at when we're watching the film. I've gone through since I've been watching these players and collected all the film clips. So it's going to be a ton of fun. We're not, the best film analysts in the world. We're not going to get super, super technical with it. It's just fun to analyze what matters for fantasy from the lens that most of the film bros that you're going to see out there are probably doing it from an NFL draft frame of mind. And it's kind of a differing take on that. So a couple more spots available in the draft. Again, feel free to jump in here if you guys are waiting to get in. I'm sure a lot of you guys are on like your lunch break or whatever at work. But a couple more spots and then we'll get this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin, this is a tight end premium mock, Superflex 0.5 tight end premium in this.
Yeah, sorry. The rules are at the top left corner there. It says Dynasty Startup Mock Draft, Superflex PPR, half tight end premium. So yeah, again, we're still waiting for a couple people to join in. We do have some questions in the chat here. We got Chan is requesting pick 10 for some practice. We'll see if we can rig it up for you here. Jared saying, let's go draft time. What's going on? Bailey, drop a like. Appreciate that. Pick 12 would be awesome for Caleb here. I don't actually see which team he actually is, but we'll maybe try and rig it up for you as well. Let's go on lunch right now. Figured that would be the case. Slats is in here. He says 12 team Superflex 6-point passing touchdown. Traded 103, Puka Nacua, a 2025 first, and a second, which is projected late, Jahan Dotson and Mac Jones. And he received Josh Allen and the 108 and the Patriots defense. But who really cares about that? Yeah. So, I mean, the nuts and bolts of this deal are 103 Puka, 25 first, second, and then like some extra pieces here for Allen and 108. What are your thoughts?
I mean, if we're breaking down the meat and potatoes of this deal, like for East's sake, let's just say the 25 first and late second is about the 108, give or take. And then if you cancel those out, it's basically Josh Allen in exchange for Marvin Harrison Jr. / Drake May, the asset that the 103 would bring, Puka Nacua, Dotson, and Mac Jones. As much as I love Dotson and Mac Jones in this deal are pretty much like fluffer pieces. They're really not going to be the big swinging pieces of this deal. The meat and potatoes comes down to, would you prefer the 103 and Puka, or would you prefer Josh Allen? If I need a quarterback and I have a ton of assets on my team and I want to go consolidate and get a guy like Josh Allen, this is about the market value I'd be expecting to pay. If you have an ample amount of assets and you want to go splurge on Josh Allen, I'm perfectly comfortable making this deal.
Yeah, and apparently my sleeper just wasn't loading. The draft was actually full the whole time. I did actually rig it up so that Chan got the the 110 here. So I'm see what we got.
Did
I
we
don't
randomize the
again.
order?
Yeah, I randomized it and he actually got it
Oh,
the first
fair.
try. So we'll just go with that. Apologies to Daniel here. He said he wanted 112 or whatever. I can't remember exactly. Somebody else wanted 112, but
What?
I'm going to start the draft here. Again, it is a Dynasty Superflex Startup Mock Draft, PPR, half tight end premium, not a third round reversal or anything like that. We're not going to mess around too crazy here, but very excited to get into this. And yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I think with Allen, I'm okay giving up that type of package with what you're receiving in terms of the guy that literally just went first overall in this draft.
Exactly. Funny thing. So we just got a question. What are y'all doing with Hurts? I'm so conflicted. Now, I would not take him 102, but I mean, 103, 104, I think that's about the going rate he should be going at this point. So if he's falling in your drafts because people are concerned about him, I'm just taking up the free value here. And looking at my rankings at the next pick, we do have obviously Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen off the board. I am at the 105. And currently, based on my quarterback rankings, if we're looking at it here, the main guys in consideration, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. And then, of course, if you want to take like the 101, Anthony Richardson, I think that would be a little bit later, maybe at your pick. But I think for me here, CJ Stroud has to be the pick, especially in a startup setting, getting the youth at this spot, really opening yourself up to be flexible later in the draft. I'm perfectly fine taking CJ Stroud, especially what he showed in that rookie season. If I can find his name, where is he? Stroud. Okay, he's listed at 111 for some reason.
Yeah, I don't think the sleeper ADP has completely updated.
Did you set the ADP to one quarterback or super flex?
What's up?
Did you set the ADP to one quarterback or super flex?
I set it to two quarterbacks, so it should like I mean Burrow, Herbert, Fields, and all these guys should be at the top.
Yeah,
I guess
that's weird.
It's weird. I don't know what's up with the ADP. Maybe Sleeper's got it in a weird order, but Burrow's at the top of my board right now, which is he wouldn't be that way if it was a one quarterback draft, I'd imagine.
By the way, Daniel, trust me, I can relate to that. That's happened to me numerous times on this live stream alone. Like I mean, how many times have I drafted with you because it just randomly boots me? So sorry that it happened to you, Daniel. Fuck, man, that is relatable. That is relatable.
Yeah, that's happened to me in people's drafts as well. Jay Full says, morning lads, made a trade in our Tone Setters League. I didn't actually see this. He said they traded Downs in a 2025 first for 106. Thoughts?
I mean, we may as well just plug it in here. I have in the league settings, the Tone Setter Truther settings. So for reference, this is a league we did with our Tone Setter patrons prior to joining the site. Obviously, all of you in there, big time supporters. These are the league scoring settings. So full PPR, Dynasty League, tight end premium with a super flex. It's a 12 team. You could start 2 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a tight end, and 3 flexes on a week-to-week basis with 25 bench spots. So we'll see what the trade calculator spits out here. So it was Josh Downs?
And yeah, he actually ended up trading Josh Downs and a 2025 first. I don't exactly know. I can't remember off the top of my head where Jay Full is. I'm pretty sure he was like it
was the other way.
Was he not?
It was the other way. So he got Downs in the first in exchange for the 106.
I see.
And the person who gave him his first was Could Be Better or Karma. So that was a playoff team last year. For E's sake, we'll just say it's a mid to late first in exchange for the 106. So fair trade. So for me personally, in your given your context, because you're a heavy rebuilder, I don't mind taking the 106, turning it into 2 parts like that. Obviously, you're hoping that maybe the upside of that 2025 first is it works into the top 5, and at that point, you're already profiting there at the 106. So in comparison to the 106. So it's a fair trade. I would probably slightly lean value side on your side, but again, I do think this is a fair trade.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page there, given what he's trying to do. I actually the ADP for some reason was set to redraft.
Change that
2 quarterbacks, so that's why it was a little bit wonky there.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be rolling here. I don't know. I'd be caught between. I take a lot of Trevor Lawrence, so let's mix it up here, and we'll go with Anthony Richardson here at the 111 and see kind of what I'm looking at on the way back. I feel like every time we do one of these mock drafts, I'm picking in the late first round area, so I'm kind of annoyed that I didn't get an early pick, but we'll have to see here.
You forgot to add kickers, by the way.
We have rookies in here.
What? No, we don't.
Do we not have rookies? Jesus,
no.
Man. This whole thing's just sketched out right now. Available players to draft says all players.
Yeah, the rookies aren't in here for some reason.
What the hell?
Unless they are buried, like can I search Marvin Harrison?
Yeah, I mean they should be in here, so I don't know what the heck's going on.
They are absolutely buried. What in the hell?
Okay, so
Marvin
I mean
Harrison's
this is
listed
on
at
sleeper then. I'm
557.
just going to resume the clock. If you want to take rookies, obviously, definitely definitely do that. And I didn't even notice because I would have probably taken Caleb Williams at 111 there. So yeah.
Yeah, like so I guess like, oh, okay. So there's a tab you could just search by rookies only if you want to take a rookie. It'll help you sort that, guys. Sorry for the apologies for the you
Yeah,
know.
right here is where Danny's talking about right here. You can click this off and it'll show rookies only.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame Sleeper for this. I think they should have the rookies integrated into the mix by now. Maybe I hit the wrong setting and it's my fault, but to be honest, I don't know why it's not just like set up that way already.
Yeah, for sure. So what do we got here? Don't get fired. Yeah, exactly. If you're in the draft, don't get fired. Make sure you're here for every single pick. And good thing for everybody in this draft room, I see all the green icons showing they are active in the draft. So love to see that. Hurts the value right now. Sleeper ADP is trash. Yeah, it hurts. Like if he's fallen past the 105, 106 in your startups, like I've seen some startups where people are like, yeah, I just got Jalen Hurts at like the 109. And I'm like, okay, well, at that point, he's already got his extension. We already know he's a big time dual threat. And we already know this guy, as soon as he's healthy with that offense, can push up to 24, 25 points per game. So I don't think he should be escaping the top 5.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my flexibility here. I thought about going with like a Marvin Harrison or a Drake May, but I'm going to go with Kyler in case we have some competitive assets falling down to me. I want to maintain that flexibility. To me, going with a guy like Richardson, yeah, he's a young asset, but I think you could also make the argument that he fits whatever build you're looking for, just given the rushing threat that he has. So I'm going to roll with those top 2 quarterbacks as my first 2 picks and kind of see what happens while I'm waiting for, the next 20 picks to come off the board. If we see a million young players go off the board, I might pivot towards more of a contending strategy if that's how the board shakes out for me. So we talk about Chan yet? I don't think we did. He said his QB room is set. Would you rather have the 108 and 103 or the 105 and 106? And again, assuming your quarterbacks are very, very strong at this point in time. He said, going to sit tight until draft time regardless. Just want to hear y'all's thoughts. And he's the one with the 103 and the 108 currently. So, I mean, if your quarterback room is set, it does make sense to move off of 103 if you know, of course, that Marvin will be off the board. If Marvin's not off the board, then I would rather have 103 and 108. But it really all depends on your investigative journalism here to see if Marvin's going to be there 103, because at face value, yeah, 106, 105, you're going to be guaranteed 2 very solid prospects. Maybe you can walk away from this draft with Malik Neighbors and Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors and Romo Dunze or whatever. And that's an appealing package as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid package for sure. Gavin asked, by the way, quickly, can someone let me know if it's tight end premium? It says on the top there, 0.5 tight end premium. So remember that when you're on the pick, you're picking at the 102 there. Okay. So I'm on the clock, obviously. I mean, there's a couple ways I can go here. In terms of my highest ranked players, you're looking at guys like Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, obviously Bijan Robinson. A couple different directions. Let me just scan exactly my order. Is Garrett Wilson off the board?
He is not.
Garrett Wilson's my pick then. Garrett Wilson is my pick. Him or Puka would have been the main consideration, given the fact that it's a 3 wide receiver start league. Taking a young potential superstar wide receiver at this spot, I'm more than comfortable doing.
Yeah, we got Bindles checking in from Scarborough. I didn't actually know that's where Bindles was from.
Let's go, Bindles.
All right, we love our GTA bros here.
Amen.
For people who are not Canadian, that means the Greater Toronto area, which is where Scarborough is located. So, where does Caleb go in one quarterback rookie drafts? I have him at 5 behind the top 3 wide receivers in Bowers. I'm curious where you put him, because we obviously just finalized our top 30 for the rookie draft, or for the rookie guide. Where did you end up having Caleb Williams in your one quarterback rankings?
In my one quarterback ranking. So I noticed when we were going through it, I had the one quarterbacks higher than you did comparatively. I believe he settled in as my 106 or 107 in one quarterback.
Yeah, I would say it really is kind of dependent on your team.
For sure.
I think in terms of relative startup value, you could definitely make the argument for Caleb Williams realistically, like he says here, behind the top 3 receivers in Bowers at 5. I think you could argue him as high as that, because I think even in a one quarterback format, if it's a 6-point per passing touchdown, there's any kind of accelerators, Caleb Williams is still going to be really valuable. I would say it would all depend on how your league values the quarterback position, or if it's 10 team, 12 team, whatever the case is. So for me, I believe I have him, kind of mixed in with the wide receivers in the second tier somewhere. I think I have Worthy ahead of him. And I also have Franklin ahead of him, I think, and McConkey ahead of him. And then I think he's right after those guys above Brian Thomas, who's my wide receiver 7. So I believe I have him like 108. But again, it would really depend kind of on your team and how your league values the quarterback position, because 105, I don't think is egregious to put him that high.
For sure. And I want to address this because funny enough, the video that we're doing tomorrow is a variation kind of what Daniel's asking. But could y'all do a video on what to do with the market's risky assets, dudes like Hurts, A-Rich, Puka, Caleb Williams, Daniels, etc.? Well, the video that we actually have tomorrow is going through the biggest contentious players in Dynasty. So we found the list. We found like the highs of where these guys are going, the lows of where these guys going, comparing like the big difference, kind of where we're at and why they're contentious players. So you guys should be enjoying that tomorrow. That's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, and Avery, who is with the Dynasty Domain, obviously the inspiration for this video is he put a February ADP list, an updated ADP on our site, Flock Fantasy, and he took the standard deviations, which if you're not math guys, it just means like the min and max values of these players. So again, where the market is divided, some people are taking these guys, let's say at pick 36. Some players are taking this guy at pick 86. Like that's a big difference, right? That means the market's divided on a certain player. So that's the types of players that you're going to see in that video is, okay, what's the ceiling and floor? Why are people taking him super high? Why are people taking him super low? And kind of talking through what we think about him and what we think the outlook is looking like. But I don't mind that idea of doing it like specifically. It looks like Daniel's asking for like high end assets like Puka Nacua and Caleb Williams and those type of guys, because
why not both?
There is it would almost be fun. I don't know if you guys remembered in the summer, I did a video basically outlining the risk assessment of all the early round ADP players. And I think that would be kind of fun to do for Dynasty as well. I know it's like there's so much more that goes into it as opposed to like risk from a redraft standpoint. It's like, oh, his offensive line's not that good or whatever. It's very binary. It's way easier to evaluate. With Dynasty, it's like, evaluating a player's risk level is a lot different because you have to account for like long-term insulation and, the coaching staff, maybe even the franchise that they play for. But I think that might be a fun exercise that would also be pretty valuable for you guys too. Because if you're more risk-averse drafters, maybe you don't go Anthony Richardson at 111. Maybe you go with Kyler Murray instead or whatever, because Kyler Murray's a proven stud quarterback already.
For sure. Now I'm back on the clock, and typically here I would probably take a Malik Neighbors. I'd probably take a Jaden Daniels to get my second quarterback, but I want to mix it up, man. And we've talked about the fact that there's a lot more insulated value at the top end of the running back position. A guy that I value just up there with the Breece Hall, the Bijan Robinson that's off the board is Jahmyr Gibbs. So let me spice it up and go with Jahmyr Gibbs here at the 305. Oh, I just got
and Danny's fired.
Pick. I mean, I was explaining my pick.
Yeah, like I thought you gotta watch the clock, brother.
Fuck, I guess.
Turn your auto draft off so when I resume it doesn't pick him again.
Yeah, what? I can't right now. What? How do I? It's not
Here,
letting
I'll just
me.
manually.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, there we go.
What is going on?
There you go.
Awesome. I'm explaining the rationale of my pick, and I just get freaking ripped. That's unbelievable.
There you go. You got it. You got it done.
Woo! I mean, I would have been comfortable. For the record, if I actually got auto drafted Malik Neighbors, that also would have been a phenomenal pick. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Neighbors definitely still within that range there. IDEP asked a similar question as well. I swear every draft Danny messes a pickup. Yeah, I agree. IDEP says thoughts on JSN. Again, he's also one of these. The market's very divided on players because he is a very tough evaluation. I said it on the podcast me and Danny were on yesterday with FF Snoog on Twitter and Dynasty Dad. JSN, you can't have it two ways. He either was disappointing his rookie season, which he was because he was being drafted as a 5th, 6th rounder on Underdog Fantasy, and he had like, wide receiver 45 production. That's a disappointing pick. It's the same thing that you could have said about like Jahan Dotson, for example, who was being drafted in a similar area. But you also can't then explain away why he was disappointing with the Lockett and Metcalf stuff because we knew that going in. So with JSN, it's really all about, did he show you enough his rookie year to say that he's still going to be an elite fantasy football wide receiver? The nice thing about JSN is that the market wants to like him because they liked him coming out of school. The problem is if he comes out and by week 7 of his second season, he looks like, he's got 200 yards and 1 touchdown on 26 targets or something like that. Nobody's going to be excited about JSN anymore, and he's going to lose value really quick. And we saw that happen with Treylon Burks, who was a guy that was very high on the dynasty market his rookie season. Going into his rookie season, he was consensus the top 101, 102, 103 in rookie drafts. And then he never ended up hitting his range of outcomes. And he was a risky bet going into his second season. Some people were still in on him. Some people were out on him. JSN's less risky, I would say. But at the same time, you have to factor in the risk. So to answer your question, easily, I would swap him for Drake London.
Yes, in a heartbeat. And you say similar tier like London. They are not similar tier, in my opinion, until he shows the ability to command targets like Drake London has throughout his career. I can't put JSN in that bucket. Now, he's a top 25 overall wide receiver for me. I believe he's either my wide receiver 25 or wide receiver 26. So I may have just contradicted myself. But with JSN, I mean, people are asking, like, where would you rank him among the rookie wide receivers? And it was kind of felt like a hot take. I was on an island that you have to have Jordan Addison, you have to have Tank Dell, you have to have Rashee Rice, you have to have those guys over him. Why do you have to have those guys over him? Because they showed more in their rookie season. And people, like you said, are going to make the excuse, well, he's got DK, he's got Lockett, like there's so much target competition. Then why were people taking him in the 5th round of best ball drafts? If he was not disappointing by expectations, why was he going as a top 5 round pick? If he was going in the 9th or 10th round in best ball leagues, then you may have a case. He was going straight up over Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I don't think JSN is a bad bet to make. Like last year, Treylon Burks and Jamison Williams, I was staunchly more against after their rookie seasons than I would be on JSN. But again, it all depends on what the value of JSN is. If he can get you to Drake London, then that indicates to me that nobody cares what he did in his rookie season, which is a mistake, in my opinion, because we should care a little bit. But if he's mid-20s wide receiver value, wide receiver 24, wide receiver 25 in your league's eyes, then yeah, you can hold on to him and hope that he'll appreciate value. I think that's a fair price to do that. It just really, his question is, what you do with him totally depends on what you can get for him in a trade.
Absolutely. And Ray, real quick, I want to address this. How is no one taking Jaden Daniels yet? I want to remind everyone, if you want to access the rookies, you just press the rookies only tab. I do agree that Jaden Daniels kind of fall into a pretty tasty price at the 4-2.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to take Jaden Daniels just because I don't think he should be on the board right now. So and plus I already have 2 quarterbacks. And again, if this was a real draft, I think that Jaden Daniels is worthwhile at this point. So I probably would just select him and hope to trade him on later. Even though I'm not a big Jaden Daniels guy, I think this is probably a point in the draft where he should be going off the board. I'm going to actually go with Brandon Ayuk. I've talked about this a couple times where I want to experiment building like almost a hero RB shell in Dynasty Startup Drafts, because I believe that the top of the running back market in Dynasty is somewhat undervalued because of what they represent over the rest of the position. So what I did in this draft was anchor my running back position with Jonathan Taylor, got that Colts backfield locked down with Richardson and Taylor, and then I'm going to see if I can build out a competitive team, because looking at the board, everybody's going young. I think I can build out a nice competitor. I probably should have just gone with Tyreek Hill if I was going to build out a competitive team, but I wanted to maintain flexibility for one more round. So I'm okay missing out on Tyreek Hill, even though maybe that was a mistake in a lot of your eyes if I was going to go with a competitive guy like Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I got a similar build here too. Getting a quarterback, anchoring it with a running back here. Obviously, elite superstar potential talent there with Garrett Wilson. Leaves me really flexible because I got a lot of young players, but at the same time, if I do see fit, maybe a couple win now pieces wanted to fall, I'd be able to transition this very easily. Now, that would have been the case if. I mean, there's a lot of good wide receivers available. Let me just see which one.
Odunze is a pretty screaming value to me too right now.
It's between Odunze, is Collins? No, Collins is gone. It was between Odunze and Drake London for me, to be quite honest. I just think Drake London shouldn't be on the board. So I have Drake London a little bit higher. Could Odunze go top 8, maybe lands with the Chargers and jump him? Sure. But at this current point, given the volume we've seen from Drake London, given Zach Robinson coming in, I'm perfectly comfortable taking him here at the 4-8.
Yeah. A lot of good wide receivers in that like back end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2 tier still there too. I mean, a lot of people are really excited about DJ Moore, Tank Dell, of course, T Higgins. We'll see what happens with his contract situation. Michael Pittman Jr. obviously had a great season. We just talked about JSN. Some people are really high on him. Rashee Rice definitely worthy of being in that conversation as well. So yeah, big wide receiver run probably about to happen here if I had to guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
We still do have Kyron Williams on the board too, which I believe probably tail ends the last of the like solidified 2-year RB1 projections. Maybe you group Rachaad White and Kenneth Walker into that as well, because those guys are pretty solid too. But yeah, we're starting to see that position dry up a little bit in addition to the wide receiver position. So Jake Brown says 12 team. Full PPR, Superflex, tight end premium, start 11. I have Burrow, Stroud, Kyler, and Levis. So very strong quarterback core.
Wow.
Also have 103, 109, 111, 203. Need more wide receivers. Which quarterback should I trade and which wide receivers should I target with the pick? So I'm
I got
first
an
thing I'm
answer.
doing is making sure that I get Marvin with my first pick. So 103, if you know you're not going to get Marvin, I would go to the 102 guy and trade up for Marvin Harrison. That would be the first thing that I would probably do with this team. I don't think you necessarily have to move off of one of your quarterbacks. And if you did move off of one of them, I would be Levis for me.
Really?
Because, yeah, I would, because
I would
Levis is the
disagree.
riskiest of this group. I feel very, very confident with Burrow, Stroud, and Kyler. I understand that you'll get more for
Yes.
Burrow, Stroud, or Kyler if you move off of them. But for me, it's just like, just roll with it. It sounds like you have a very good team. Like you have these 4 great quarterbacks, all these picks. You probably have a good wide receiver core, even though you said you need more wide receivers. You're going to have opportunities to draft wide receivers at 109, at 111, at 203. Maybe you can move one of those guys for a veteran. For me, I would just move off of the risky bet with Will Levis. That's what I would probably do.
Honestly, I disagree. I would move off of either Burrow or Stroud personally. I view Levis as more than fine for a quarterback 3 option. Kyler Murray, I think, can get back to that elite tier. And then you pair them with one of Burrow or Stroud. The reason why I say that is, can you take the value of a Burrow or Stroud and turn that into Justin Jefferson and turn that into CeeDee Lamb and turn that into Jamar Chase? Is that an available type of deal for you? Because at that point, you're still keeping the high-end value appreciation of a top-end asset, but you're also applying it to a different position, and a position that it sounds like you need more at this rate. And not to mention, given the fact that basically everybody in Dynasty needs quarterbacks and you're the one of the few that doesn't, you should be able to get that deal done. So with Levis, it's like, what type of comparable wide receiver are you realistically turning him into? And what is the impact of that wide receiver in your lineup compared to changing a Burrow or Stroud into a Lamb, into a Jefferson, into a Chase? That's how I view it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I guess it would all depend on if quarterbacks are valued where they should be in your league.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, then you just move off of the cheaper one and hope you can re-roll Levis into a late first round or maybe a random 2025 first or whatever. But like Danny said, if you can just swap off of Kyler Murray for Amon-Ra St. Brown or swap off of CJ Stroud for Justin Jefferson plus potentially, given where they go currently in startups, I think that's definitely a worthwhile move considering the rest of your lineup is probably in really good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at who I'm going to be picking next here. I believe my next highest receiver would be Zay Flowers. I'm more than comfortable taking him at the 5-5, given the construct of my team.
Yep, for sure. Take it easy. Bindles, yes, Danny did indeed get fired, so you hate to see that. Thoughts on Joe Burrow for Bijan, McBride, and Jaden Reed in a 12-team half PPR start 10. I have Kyler, the 101 and 103, so set at quarterback. So that's not enough for me to move off of Burrow. Bijan is great, and he's definitely a high-end asset
Agreed.
in his own right. I would rather get Bijan plus a better asset than McBride and Jaden Reed. And I don't think McBride and Jaden Reed are any slouch by any stretch of the imagination. They're just not good enough for me to move off of an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, realistically, like if you're equating it out, what Bijan, McBride, Jaden Reed for Joe Burrow, technically on face value, this would be an appropriate deal. But my question is, like, it doesn't really impact your lineup. Like if Jaden Reed was a more winning type of player instead of a young appreciation player, I'd be more willing to make this move, because then I could say, oh, you have Kyler Murray, you're set at quarterback, whatever, and you're trying to win now. That's fine. At that point, Bijan's going to give you points, McBride's going to give you points. I just think you would want, if you're going to make this type of deal, instead of Jaden Reed, can you get it's going to sound crazy, but can you get a Jalen Waddle? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's possible that you
Nico
could
Collins?
get something like that in return.
Yeah.
So I'm back on the board here. I'm just looking at the rookie board. I don't think I'm probably going to go in that direction because my team isn't really set up for that type of build. At wide receiver, I think I probably need to make a selection here because the board's drying up pretty quickly. I could go Metcalf. I could go Debo. I could go Jaden Reed a little bit younger if I wanted to. Who do I want to grab here? I'm going to grab Metcalf because I feel more comfortable with his projection. He's a little bit younger than Debo. I guess that would be the tiebreaker, but Debo and him would probably be next to each other. I also have Ayuk too, so I guess that probably factored in a little bit to my decision as well.
For sure.
We're just scared from the Cam Newton and Trey Lances of the world with those injuries. Guys go from first rounders to irrelevant quickly. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really worried about an injury standpoint. I'm assuming Daniel's talking about like Jane Daniels and like Anthony Richardson and like rushing quarterbacks. I'm not really scared about injuries with these guys, to be honest.
Agreed.
I'm just more so worried about them not keeping their starting job because they're not good enough passers.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily that I think they're going to get hurt, and that's why I would be out on players like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
I'm on
back
the
on the
same
board
page.
here. Do I want to just double load up on the 49ers and just onslaught it? I might. I
Taking
mean, I have a
Deebs.
dynasty team that's reaping the rewards of doing that. So, um, running back, I could grab one more guy here if I wanted to, but I actually kind of like the depth on the board right now. So I'm probably not going to go in that direction.
Tight
Could
end.
grab a youth guy with George Pickens. I'm just going to grab the best player on the board, which in my opinion is Deebo Samuel. So
I respect it. I respect it. Yeah. Um,
yeah, Shane Waldron is gone. JSN Elite. I mean, we'll see, man. I already know if you guys have JSN and you're worried, like I am worried about JSN, you're gonna have a selling window here soon when Tyler Lockett gets cut because I think he's going to. So when Tyler Lockett gets cut and follows Russell Wilson to wherever he's going next, I would imagine that JSN is going to rise in value because everybody's going to be able to see, oh, JSN's gonna be the slot receiver now, and it realistically probably didn't change a whole lot. But a lot of people will value JSN more with Tyler Lockett not being there. So JSN, if you guys are looking to move off of him, I would wait until Lockett's gone because I think he will be.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think Lockett is almost assuredly gone. There's been a lot of reports linking like Roman Wilson to the Seahawks because, I mean, comparatively, like that's the type of role he can play, that Lockett role in the offense. I've seen a lot of those comparisons being made. Yeah, if Tyler Lockett's gone and you have a selling window where people are like, "Oh, they did this because JSN's elite and they expect him to be the wide receiver one," and there's someone in your leagues that's going to say that, and you can sell on that hype. Absolutely. Also, Flet, you just ripped my heart out of my chest taking Bryce Young right there.
Hate to see it.
I didn't
Sammy
think you
also
would take
kind of
him.
explains the best ball, why we were taking JSN. So I agree, Sammy. That's probably why JSN was going high was the structure of the tournament where all the money's at the top. But at the same time, he was going high because everybody was hyped on him too. Like it wasn't just the structure of the tournament. So I think when you disappoint relative to expectations, there should be some kind of consequences for that, which is what we're seeing with JSN's value right now. So I very much view JSN right now as a year from now, all of us are going to be like, that was way too high given his rookie season, or that was an absolute steal given his prospect profile. That's literally what's going to happen with JSN, in my opinion. I don't actually think he's going to hit a median range of outcomes. I think he's either going to crush and be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver midway through his second season, or he's going to be the next Treylon Burks.
Yeah. Real quick, Gavin, I want to address this real quick because I saw it. I don't understand how the Seahawks cut Lockett after 122 targets, 79 catches, 5 TDs he had. Seems like Twitter GM hopium. I want to address this because, I mean, you could just point to the production of any player and say, why would they cut that? Why would the Dallas Cowboys
It's
trade
about
Amari
the
Cooper?
contract details. Lockett's one of the highest paid receivers in the league, and he's like 32 or 33 years old. So they're probably going to cut bait with him. He was also Russell Wilson's guy too, so that might factor in or whatever. And it looks like, I mean, Pete Carroll's gone. You know, they're going in like a new, younger direction. So that it's more than just like looking at his production and being like, why the hell would you cut that guy?
Why would the Cowboys trade Amari Cooper for a 5th-round pick? It's all cost related. Realistically, like you could still be a performing player, but if you're making a ton of money and you're an older player and they're trying to go in a new direction with a new coach, I think it's more likely than not that he's probably not a Seahawk coming into next year, to be quite honest.
Yeah, for sure. I think the contract he could also be a trade candidate potentially too, but I think he's probably on his way out, I would imagine. Who do we think the Falcons go after at quarterback? Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about some free agency stuff here pretty soon once we get closer to it, but I think it's going to be a really fun conversation because with Zach Robinson there, like IDUP mentions, London and Bijan and Pitts and those guys, we need somebody, man. We really do. We need somebody in Atlanta.
Like,
and I don't know, would you be satisfied with a bridge quarterback? Because I honestly, I don't think I would be. Like, it's a better upgrade than what we've had so far. Like Ryan Tannehill or Jimmy Garoppolo or whatever they would do in a worst case scenario. But I think, and Daniel Jeremiah documented this in his most recent mock draft, they're going to be aggressive in the draft, in my opinion.
They should be aggressive. If they're unable to, let's just say they're unable to get their hands on one of the top 3 quarterbacks. If they signed like a Jacoby Brissett and they were the team that ended up, I mean, Russ could make sense too, maybe on a 1-year deal, and they were the team that ended up going for JJ McCarthy, I think that would make a ton of sense too. I mean, we talked about, for example, when JJ was expected to go in the 19-20 area, we said, well, if the Rams took JJ McCarthy to be the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford, that would make a ton of sense. Well, guess what? Zach Robinson coming over as the OC for Atlanta. We're expecting them to run that Los Angeles Rams type of offense, getting JJ the athleticism, the arm that he has, the outer structure ability that he has to develop 1 year behind a guy like Jacoby Brissett or Russell Wilson, I think would make a ton of sense. That would be the only scenario. Outside of that, if you can get into the top 4 and get a guy like Drake May, that's obviously the preferred option. But if they are indeed the JJ McCarthy team, I don't think it's bad bringing in a competitive veteran quarterback to kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah, no, McCarthy. I don't think McCarthy should start his entire rookie season, to be honest. Let
I agree.
alone, and like we say that about a lot of rookie quarterback prospects. Like I probably would have said that about Richardson too. But at the same time, like McCarthy, if he goes to Atlanta specifically, there should be a guy in place, whether it's Tannehill or Garoppolo or Brissett or whatever the case is. There should be a guy in place to maybe bridge the gap a little bit because he is really young and he has some work to do.
Yeah, no, I
You're
agree
gonna
with
get
you.
fired if you don't pick soon.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm looking. Don't worry. Stuck between a couple of guys. I think wide receiver I can pretty much wait on. It's a pretty flat tier. Running back, I mean, you could look at one of these options as well. Honestly, I just have a lot of belief at this point in the draft 7-5 in a guy like Will Levis, so I will take him at this pick. Obviously, a lot more risk involved here, but given that I'm a young team and probably not competing right away anyways, I don't mind taking the risk on Will Levis in hopes that he can be a top three round type of startup pick next year.
I really thought you were going to take McCarthy there, to be honest.
I thought about it. I think at this point you have to favor Levis because he at least showed in the NFL. But I like they're close for me. Like realistically, if JJ lands in the right spot, I can see him absolutely going ahead of him too.
Yeah, for sure. So Cup going off the board to Fletsky here. He's building out the all win now squad with Bryce Young as his anchor quarterback, which makes me fucking really nervous. But I mean, I'm assuming he's probably going to backfill with some veteran quarterback options. I'm coming up on the clock here. I got a couple guys that are interesting at wide receiver. I really actually think that Amari Cooper is a decent value here. There's still some great wide receivers in the rookie draft available. I mean, Worthy just went off the board. He probably would have been my pick had he been on the board for me there. I'm maybe considering with McConkey here if he falls back to me. But actually, you know what? There's a tier break for me at running back, so I'm going to take Rachaad White.
I dig it.
I get the disrespect to some degree with Rachaad White. Like maybe they add somebody, but at the same time, the guy might be a RB1 for the next 2 years with like an elite workload. And I may have just gotten him at the 7-11 in a startup draft, which is pretty insane because there's like maybe 7 or 8 running backs you can say all of Dynasty have a 2 to 3 year projection of RB1 production.
Yeah. So we're looking here. Is there any new comments? There's one here. Okay. Perfect.
Kraus. Yeah, we had a couple up here. So Kraus said, I saw a mock with Odunze going to Atlanta and them sticking with Ritter. That's disgusting. That's literally disgusting. Them sticking with Ritter would be the biggest mistake of all time.
Never take that mock seriously.
Gets the landing spot, he's in that conversation too. I don't think T is going anywhere this year. I think he's going to play on the tag, and the Bengals will just try and run it back this year. It makes way too much sense for them to try and win again with the same core before they have to pay Chase. So for me, I think they'll tag T, try and get him to play, make sure he doesn't hold out or whatever. And then they'll probably let him walk next year and pay Jamar, I think is what's going to happen.
Hear me out. Okay, so real quick, the reason why I reacted like that is because I was hoping that McConkey made it back. He's my water.
He wasn't coming back past me, to be honest.
Really?
So, no.
Really? Fuck. Okay. And B, what were we just talking? The flash of comment again. Sorry, I completely forgot the context. T. Higgins, right. Hear me out. If you're the Bengals, is it all far-fetched to say you can tag him, use your leverage in the draft where if a guy like Brian Thomas falls, you can take him, and then you can trade T. Higgins probably for a second-round pick from a team that needs a wide receiver like a Carolina, like one of these other teams that just desperately needs a win now wide receiver that has a lot of pedigree to his name. So
I mean, probably do it on the night of the draft.
Also. That's what I mean.
Like you said, like if you're waiting, if you're like, hey, we don't want to trade Higgins until we know we can replace him with Thomas. Maybe Thomas is their dude, or maybe they love Coleman or whatever guy that they really like in the draft. I could totally see them waiting on it. I'm not in the business of taking a lot of running backs, but again, I view kind of Josh Jacobs as one of the last guys that I feel pretty comfortable with. I'm really curious to see what happens with Jacobs, with Saquon, and with Pollard and some of these free agent running backs. We haven't really talked about it a whole lot. Somebody's going to pay Josh Jacobs, right? I would imagine that the Raiders might actually be the team that does it.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a fascinating case. Obviously, the efficiency fell off a ton this year, but then you can point to the fact that he was
I wouldn't say a ton, man. He was still very good, especially how hard it is to be efficient when you're getting 25 carries a game.
No, I know. I mean, I was going to give context to it. I mean, the situation, especially amongst the offensive line last year for the Raiders, was a mess. So I'm willing to override a little bit, especially because he was banged up. But I mean, it is a concern, a running back coming off a down year, entering free agency, expecting a big deal, especially given the fact he's what,
He's only
26 years old
25,
now.
man. He's only 25. He's
25.
my age. He's like, his birthday's the same year. He's like
It's
only a
pretty
couple
old,
months
eh?
older than me. He's not that, he's going to be 26 entering the season, I believe, because his birthday's before mine, but he's still a very, very good back, man. Like if Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb got second contracts with their team, I don't see why Jacobs shouldn't have gotten one. What they should have done is paid him last year. Even though he was coming off of a monster year, I think you still could have gotten him for like a decent discount, knowing that Jacobs' agent probably knows there's not all this free agent money available on the market for running backs. I would have signed him to like a 3-year, $45 million with 2 years on the contract guaranteed last year, because now you're dealing with the same exact problem you had last year, only now he's a year older with another 350 touches under his belt.
Yeah. I mean, that's the issue. You didn't even hear the joke, by the way. I said that's pretty old.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that I'm considered old for a running back now, which is wild. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, when you look at the running back position, I know it's so common sense to be like, oh, just like use them up and let them walk or whatever. But like, if you're going to pay a running back, you need to do it immediately so that you get the best years out of them. Like if you're going to do it, and I'm not advising they actually do it, but if you're going to actually extend him, the big mistake would be extending him this year. If I was the Raiders, you should have extended him last year if you were willing to extend him this year.
For sure. Now I'm on the clock here, and I mean, there's a good amount of quarterbacks that are still I'm so comfortable with, especially JJ, especially Bo Nix. And given the fact that these teams on the turn, 2 of them have 2 quarterbacks, I'm going to see if one falls back. I'm going to go back to the wide receiver position, look at some of the rookies. You can go with a Keon, a guy like that here. I don't know. I'm debating a few names. Let me go down. Wide receiver kind of feels flat at this point. Is there a young tight end maybe?
I think this is about the spot for the rookie backs too, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? That is a fair point. Whew. I'm conflicted. I'm not going to let myself time out though. So Benson, Brooks. Yeah, you know what? I mean, this is projecting. Oh,
you let yourself time out. You literally.
It was 10 seconds left. There was 10 seconds left. All my life. There was 10 seconds left. There was 10 seconds left. No. I was about to make a pick. There was 10 seconds left.
Okay, who do you want?
That's insane. Quick. Just give it JJ. What the hell? Like, there's 10 seconds on the clock and it auto picks for me. What is sleeper? Actually, though, what is it?
Sometimes it's laggy. Everyone fire him in the chat. You know what to do. Turn your auto pick off so you don't get fired a second time.
What a joke.
Let me know if you guys plan on leaving me Hawk. Yeah, Hawkinson's interesting. I think 6'7" is pretty ridiculous for Hawkinson, even though the ACL tear is going to impact his value. Any rebuilding team should be willing to take him a little bit earlier than that, I think. Josh says traded Olave for Fields straight up and got bashed by the league. Am I crazy, or was it not a good move? I mean, I guess it depends on your opinion of Fields, but Olave for Fields straight up is equivalent value on the market right now. I don't really have any qualms with the trade. It's just you traded a safe asset for a risky asset.
Yeah, like for what it's worth, I'm a little bit more pessimistic on Fields comparatively to the market. And I mean, you're looking at my 31st ranked player versus my 27th ranked player. So if you need a quarterback, I'm more than fine buying Fields for that price. It's just if people are starting to value him as like a top 20 overall asset, that's where I'm out.
Yeah, and it's difficult because Fields, by the looks of it, will be on 100% a free agent, or not on the Falcon, or not on the Bears at least. And that's a risk of his profile, because now suddenly he's going to be on a team that didn't draft him. Maybe they only have him on a 1-year audition. And then, who knows? A year from now, he might not be a starting quarterback. So Chris Olave, I would prefer him to Fields, but I understand swinging for the upside. It still says you're on auto pick for me. Maybe I need to refresh my page, but I'll refresh my thing. It's probably just glitching out on me. Anyways,
does it still say I am?
No, you're good. Is Williams an automatic smash at 102, even if your team is set at quarterback and wide receiver? Yeah, if Caleb falls to 102, he's definitely a smash. I'm assuming somebody's taking Marvin 101. Yeah, I'm taking Caleb Williams 102, even if your team is already set at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Ryan says you can always trade him. The other thing too, so one thing I will push back on a little bit is just take the value. You can always trade him later. That's true, but also there's probably a reason he fell. It's that your league isn't as high on him. So what I actually prefer to do instead is, if your team is already set at quarterback, trade one of the guys you're already set with and hold Caleb Williams, because there's a good chance that people don't view Caleb Williams as highly in your league. And maybe the guy that you do have, Justin Herbert, or whatever guy that you have on your roster already that you could maybe sell, is the guy that you end up moving. So I don't mind doing that either, because sometimes your roster is made up of, buy lows and sell highs. And you have just by happenstance, you have a bunch of guys that are buy lows right now. Like if your quarterback core is Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, and then Caleb Williams falls to you at 102, and nobody in your league likes Caleb Williams, then you're like, shit, now I have 3 guys that are hard to move because I value them higher than the market. You just hold until the market changes.
Yeah, there's certain positions that you're in where you're kind of forced to hold and take the value, but yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, you're on the clock now, so figure it out.
Yeah, I won't beat around the bush this time.
Johnny Brooks, there we go. High Take says, got 101, 103, 105 with Lamar and Anthony Richardson. How would you guys draft? Good morning, gentlemen. Great content at work. So at 101, you're just taking Caleb. You could sell the pick if you want to see, if you can get a haul for 101 and people are going to give you a high price tag for the Caleb Williams pick, I'm fine selling it. And maybe back to 102 to secure Marvin
How many flex spots in your league? Wide receiver and flex spots. Like if this is like a start, okay, contextually speaking, right off the bat, even stakes, I'm taking Caleb Williams over Marvin Harrison. At what point would you start to favor Marvin over Caleb? Would it have to be like a start 12, start 13? Like what's like the
only way I would favor Marvin is if you had wide receiver accelerators and it's a 10-team league or something. I'm taking Caleb pretty much 99% of the time over Marvin Harrison. The only way that I would just try and trade down. Like even if all you can get is a second round pick from the guy with 102, you don't have to take Caleb and you pocket a second round pick. So I would probably just do that. Worst case scenario, you draft Caleb Williams, you draft Marvin or Drake May at 103, you draft probably Malik Neighbors at 105, and then you just figure it out later. If you want to move, like I already talked about, if you want to just take Caleb Williams and then move off of Anthony Richardson because he's a risky asset, you could do that probably. I'm sure there's a lot of people in your league that value Anthony Richardson highly.
Whoa, what? Your sound's on.
My sound went back.
that just blazed my ears.
Yeah, sorry about that. If anybody's wearing headphones,
it's me.
Yeah, rookies only. Do we have anything that's interesting at the? I mean, Bo Nix is pretty screaming value for me at this point in time. I actually don't have a tight end, so what I'm going to do is take Jatavian Sanders. I probably should have just taken Bo Nix. I might just take him on the way back here, but with Bo Nix, I'm interested to see what exactly happens with his draft capital because he's getting mixed reports. I see guys like DJ have him as like a top 20 rated player. I've heard people say that he's going to be a second round pick, whatever. And High Take says he got offered 102, 205, and 206.
In your spot, smash. In your spot. If you're looking at your team right there, I believe you said what? Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson in the 101. You trade away Anthony Richardson, you get Caleb Williams, and you end up with Marvin.
That's a hell of a haul for Richardson, dude. That is a hell of a haul for Richardson. I think he's worth Marvin straight right now, to be honest. I think they're probably within the same tier.
Easily within the same tier. Now, I understand somebody wanting quarterback tax, but for reference, I've been updating my dynasty rankings. We'll be putting out an update to our trade value charts, to our rankings as a whole. Marvin Harrison Jr. is my 12th overall player. Anthony Richardson is my 13th. Realistically, if you prefer A-Rich, sure. You prefer Marv, sure. But they are same level, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't get too far caught up in Richardson's upside because he does have downside, I think is the thing that sometimes people forget to account for with Anthony Richardson. On the board, I don't like any of the fucking quarterback value right now because Nick's ended up going. I don't really like any of the wide receiver and rookie value. Actually, you know what? I love me some Jalen Polk, so I'm going to grab him. Inject some youth into my roster. I think I can still get 2 more good veteran options in the 11th, 12th round. Again, maybe you guys view what I've done so far as a no-no. I've kind of gone with a middle of the road strategy in terms of trying to be both competitive for multiple years and also try and win right away. It can work if you hit on your picks. A lot of the time, some people will advise you, stay in your lane and we're definitely those type of people. But out of a startup, I think you can kind of get away with it a little bit because the second the startup is over, veteran assets tend to lose a little bit of value. So if I wanted to trade Metcalf for a straight veteran win now wide receiver like Stephon Diggs or, somebody like that, I probably could get away with it. So for me, and Daniel actually asked us basically this exact question is, hearing you guys talk about players that fit your team build and startups, what do you think about the Domain Boy strategy? So obviously we work with them on the Flock site.
Yeah.
They just take the best player available on the board by taking the value. I totally agree with that strategy, but you got to be careful that your league doesn't, if you're that usually applies to quarterbacks and Superflex, I would say, right? If your league doesn't value quarterbacks at all, it doesn't really do you any good to draft 6 quarterbacks.
Or, vice versa. If, say, you're on the clock and you're indifferent about the age of the players on your team because a vet let's just say Stephon Diggs falls to the I
round
don't know,
six.
round 6 or something like that. And you're saying, well, I have a young team, but I'm just going to take Stephon Diggs and be able to flip it no problem. Well, if the contenders in your league let him fall, it fell to let him fall to round 6, then at that point, who are you selling him to? You're expecting more value than the round 6, but the contenders, I've already told you, they value him as a round 6 guy.
Yeah, and maybe when you made the pick, the whole league chat was like, damn it, I was hoping he fell to me. Then you're probably fine. Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, he probably fell for a reason, and you have to at least be okay holding that asset. Like I remember when Calvin Ridley was suspended, we were drafting him in like the 12th, 13th, 14th round of startups, knowing that you had to hold him. You weren't going to sell him right away. You just, if you're going to draft a falling player, falling value, you have to understand when his selling window is actually going to crop up.
Yeah, and real quick, I want to say this. I am running up to the podium because my RB3 overall, which you guys will see if you checked out the Wall Street Journal, I loved Audric Estime's tape. And I whether you're an Estime fan, whether you're not, leave it in the comments. But, I mean, all the hype that Braylon Allen gets as this physical power back, you got to apply to Audric Estime. I mean, that guy is tooth and nails. I watched his game against Ohio State specifically, got a couple cut-ups from that game of a couple runs. He is just such an instinctual runner with a legit 225-pound frame. This guy's built like a freaking tank. He's the best between the tackles runner in the class, arguably, in my opinion. And if he lands in the right spot, especially on a contender, I can see him having a 15-plus rushing touchdown year because I can see him being used at that capacity on the goal line. So I'm excited about Estime. I think he's going to get day 2 capital, probably sneaks into the fringe top 75 area. And if he does that, I think the 10-8 is going to be a steal.
Yeah, he's my RB4 behind Brooks, Wright, and Benson, but I still really liked Estime as well. I compared him to David Montgomery for the reasons that you outlined. Tough, hard-nosed runner. He knows exactly what he's doing. Yep. So impressive, too, when you compare him versus Braylon Allen, because they're actually the same age. Like, they're like 3 or 4 months apart. So everybody gets all excited about how young Braylon Allen is, but Audric Estime is basically the same age as him. Yeah. He actually was much, much better from an efficiency standpoint. To give you a reference point, Audric Estime was 3rd in the country in PFF rushing grade this year with a 94.0, which is like a top 5
insane
of all time on PFF college. So we're talking about a guy that's like a very, very efficient, getting a big workload and actually making people miss, actually breaking contact for his size, unlike a guy like Braylon Allen, who everybody sees the size, sees the, young production his freshman year and gets excited without actually realizing, oh, when we actually watch this guy play, there's not a whole lot of things that he does well. With Audric Estime, like you said, he gets the hype. Braylon Allen gets the hype that Audric Estime should get.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Same page there. I'm about to be back on the clock, though. And for reference, I'm not going to take another rookie back because I can make the case of taking another one here. I'll let your boy slide to you.
All right. Mr. Keefe says, looking to join a Dynasty Best Ball League. What settings would you suggest? How many starters and bonuses? Dynasty Best Ball Leagues are really fun the deeper they are. So, yes. I mean, if you got a 3 wide receiver, 3 flex, super flex, 2 running back, 1 tight end or whatever, that's what makes it the most fun, I think. When you have like a bog standard regular lineup, it's less fun because you want in Dynasty Best Ball, I think it's really awesome that your 3rd and 4th round rookie picks actually make your lineup and tend to actually matter. And guys like Josh Reynolds, if you can build out good depth to your dynasty roster, actually contribute to your championship runs. So I would say the deeper, the better. And the more bonuses, the more fun it is. If you got big play bonuses or, whatever the case is for wide receivers, 40+ yard catches, long touchdowns, whatever, it makes it more fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I'm not going to take your guy off the board here. I'm going to take my guy, though. Another guy that's kind of very polarizing in the eyes of the Dynasty community. I mean, some people think Xavier Legette is complete buns because of his production profile, but if you actually sit down, you actually watch the tape of this guy, I think he's a lot more refined than people say. For a 1-year producer, I understand he's going to get the criticism, but I would say he has top 5 film on this class.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think Legette's film was really, really solid, and it's low-hanging fruit to just say, oh, I don't like him because he wasn't good for more than 1 season. And it's true. He wasn't good for more than 1 season, but you still have to evaluate the player that we have no idea what's going on in his personal life. We have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. What I do know is he put out really good tape.
Yes.
And he probably isn't a bad player putting out really good tape. It's like, yes, we have to take it into a context because, he's a redshirt senior. He's probably going up against some sophomores in coverage or whatever, but it's not like he's doing this at, nobody cares university. He did it in the SEC.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, with Leggett, the context that I know too, talked about it yesterday. For example, how he was behind Juice Wells, he's behind Jalen Brooks. Last year, Jalen Brooks ended up getting drafted to the Cowboys. Didn't really get a big chance to shine, but that all changed come the bowl game. Got that rapport with Spencer Rattler, big time performance against Notre Dame. Ends up going into this year, and like you said, it takes some guys longer than it takes other guys. And for a guy like Xavier Leggett, who was recruited out of a high school as a quarterback, was a lower end type of recruit, he had to learn the wide receiver position. Obviously, everybody knew that he was just this big athletic specimen, but learning the nuances of the position, you see it on film, the strides that he has made. He, like I said, did not look raw like a Devontae Walker who seemingly gets to coast away from all the blame that Xavier Leggett gets. I mean, Devontae Walker is what, a year younger than him?
Tez Walker, yeah, he is a year younger than him.
And I would say he's way less refined than what Xavier Leggett is.
Yeah, I mean, we all knew I was going in this direction, right?
Yeah, I knew.
We had to grab Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright's my RB2 in the class right now. People are catching up. I've noticed it. Yeah. I tweeted it out 2-3 weeks ago. I was like, I'm getting this take out here before everybody starts saying it because I knew it was going to happen. Jalen Wright does everything well. He's a freakish athlete. And if he can just figure out the nuances of playing the position, and at running back, that's the one position I feel pretty confident is pretty easy to learn. And it's not like he has bad instincts. He just needs some coaching on how to like change up his tempos and things like that. Jalen Wright could be really, really awesome. And I mean, we're searching for running backs that are going to get draft capital, and we know what the NFL cares about. They care about, production, big schools, athleticism. I mean, he was productive at a big school in the SEC, and he's going to test like a freak of nature. He's going to jump 43 inches. He's going to run 4.34 or whatever at the combine. He's going to weigh in at 5'10", 210 pounds or whatever. He's really exciting, man. I'm really excited to see what Jalen Wright does at the combine. There's tons of running backs on the board right now, so I'm probably going to go in that direction. I know we all hate running backs in this house right now, but I'm caught between a couple guys. Jalen Warren is probably the most talented young back that's on the board right now. Tony Pollard is interesting. I'm going to take the buy low opportunity on Pollard here and just hope that he was banged up last year. Let's just say that's the case. That's what I'm rolling with. So I grab young Tony Pollard and old Tony Pollard in back-to-back picks here. And weird way of building out a dynasty roster, not something I would typically do, but I mean, we're only going 12 rounds with this draft. And I would say for the most part, once you get outside the top 13 to top 12 rounds, you start getting some good values on veteran wide receivers. So I think I could fill out my roster no problem with other wide receivers that are available, Demario Douglas types, Cortland Sutton types, guys like that, still available on the board.
Flat, you just ripped my heart out a second time in this draft. First with Bryce Young and then taking Michael Mayer right before me when I need a tight end. That stung.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun experimenting with certain position groups, right? Because like normally, like our staunch, opinion is, take a bunch of quarterbacks and wide receivers early on in a dynasty startup. But I actually went really running back heavy here, and I kind of just did it based on value that fell to me. Like I think getting Rachaad White and Josh Jacobs at the 7-8 turn is ridiculous, and I feel confident that even though I faded tight end into oblivion, Jatavian Sanders is an awesome upside swing guy that could come and become a top 5 tight end for me. And there's still plenty of good options on the board. Like Pat Freiermuth is still on the board. You look around the area here, you still have veteran options like Darren Waller and Dalton Schultz. If you want to go, Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are still there. Greg Dulcich is a guy I still believe in. Cade Otton. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable that if I was building out a competitive roster here, I could just grab 2 or 3 more tight ends in round 13, 14 and figure it out later. And tight ends are also like really easy to find on the open market. I find nobody is willing to give up anything for tight ends. So when you're the rare exception and you're like, I want to give up a 2nd round pick for a tight end right now because I'm a competitive team. Like I got David Njoku for like the 208 in the league last year when I needed a competitive tight end. And this was prior to his massive breakout. But at the same time, that's what like back end tight end 1 options go for on the open market. They don't go for a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, you mentioned Pat Freiermuth. I also take Cole Kmet here. I was stuck between them for reference. Cole Kmet, Freiermuth is my tight end 16 in Dynasty at this current point. The reason being is I just feel a lot more comfortable in the situation there with Caleb Williams coming in, with the potential progression of this offense comparatively to what I have with the Steelers. And Cole Kmet, for what it's worth, I mean, I've shit on this guy in the past, but he had a pretty productive year. And having Caleb Williams coming in, I'm all for it.
Yeah. All right. So let's quickly recap our teams. Anybody that's in here, we can recap yours as well. Again, am I 100% a huge fan of what I did here? Not necessarily. I think if I was going to go competitive, I might have gone back and changed that Brandon Ayuk pick to Tyreek and just gone all out with the competitive team, with the competitive build. But at the same time, I built out a pretty balanced team here with Richardson and Kyler as my QBs. Probably would have backfilled some other quarterback production later on as well. Jonathan Taylor, Rashad White, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Wright, and Tony Pollard's a hell of a running back core in a league that you could start, a couple flexes and 2 running backs in. Ayuk, Debo, Metcalf, to head out my wide receiver core. And then I would probably be hammering wide receivers for 4 or 5 rounds after this. If we were going past 12, again, mixed bag. I'm not a huge fan of this team, but it's interesting to see what it looks like when you go a little bit more running back heavy. Because it looks kind of gross and disgusting right now. But once we actually get to the regular season, I would probably have a bunch of running backs with pretty good projections, which would lead to potentially a lot of fantasy production.
Yeah, same. For my team, I have a pretty unique build comparatively to what I do. Typically, I like getting my quarterbacks early. So I want to experiment it. I pushed it back. My team could end up being very, very good if Levis and McCarthy hit, but at the same time, I think it's very, very volatile in this league because if Levis and McCarthy don't hit, then at that point, I just have CJ Stroud and I'm kind of left behind the 8 ball at the quarterback position. I kind of like what I did, but at the same time, like I said, I think it's a lot more volatile compared to some of the builds I usually have.
Yeah, for sure. And Fletch just said, why don't we just recap them all? That's a good idea. So I'm going to recap the 1 to 6 teams in really fast fashion. And then you do 7 to 12 minus my team and I'll minus your team out of that. So Big P Walk here. He goes Josh Allen, Justin Fields to head out his quarterbacks. For me, that's too early on Trey McBride. I like him, but he's not a guy that I would spend that high of a pick on. Like you passed on AJ Brown and Breece Hall. That's basically what I look at. I think Trey McBride's great. I think I maybe would have been okay with him where Mark Andrews went, but that's probably about the highest I'd be willing to take him. Late 4th round, early 5th round area. Odunze, Tank Dell, George Pickens, Keenan Allen, J-Mo, Roman Wilson. I think those are a decently built wide receiver core. Pacheco and Javonte were good values for you. And then Daniel Jones. We'll see what happens with him, but 10th round's not bad. Gavin says Jalen Hurts has Jalen Hurts and Matthew Stafford with a loaded tight end core. Again, I probably would have taken the hint that the room's not high on tight ends. After you took Sam Laporta, I probably wouldn't have taken so many options there, but AJ Brown and Pittman were good values. Saquon Barkley and Najee and Ramondre, I kind of like the values on those guys. And then Bullock here, he goes Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins as his main quarterbacks, Bijan, Breece, DJ Moore, Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson. So again, pretty balanced build with the 2 anchor running backs there. I actually really like this team. You got good value on George Kittle as well. I maybe would have backfilled one more quarterback after Kirk Cousins, just given the injury, but I actually really like that. Any thoughts on those top 3, or should I just rattle off the next 2?
Yeah, I will say the one thing that does stick out to me is with Gavin in particular, once the room started fading the tight ends and you already had Laporta, like you said, I wouldn't have taken both Andrews and Kelsey. Andrews I'm fine with because it's like, falling value. Kelsey in particular, it's like you're kind of hamstringing yourself at that point, taking a 3rd tight end, especially one that, I mean, who knows? Is this going to be his last season? Like, we don't know the future of Travis Kelce. I understand if you've already built out a contending structure and you waited on Kelce and you added him to potentially compete. But at this point, adding him as your 3rd tight end because he's a falling value, I just I don't like that because this room kind of gave you their thoughts on Travis Kelce to begin with. And in terms of Sammy, like you said, I think he built this thing out really strong, to be honest. I think that's a very, very, very good team.
Yeah. And then let's look at the source here. He goes Lamar and Jared Goff with Baker and Penix there. So pretty well-built quarterback core, I would say. Little early on Goff, middle-class quarterbacks. I usually just bypass them for the Will Levises of the world. And, you saw where you got Baker too. Maybe you would have not gone Goff at 5'4", knowing you could have gotten Baker and where Stafford and Cousins and those guys went. But I love the wide receiver core, Puka Nacua, Chris Olave, Mike Evans, and Amari Cooper. That's really good for like a competitive team. Devon Achane, Brian Robinson, James Conner, pretty good, like light at running back type of build. You could probably backfill with a lot more guys. And then David Njoku is probably good value there at the 7-4. So pretty big fan of this team as well. I think every pick was pretty sound process-wise with what you were looking at. FF Apple Pie, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Love, Malik Neighbors, Deshaun Watson, T. Higgins, Hawkinson, Godwin, McLaurin, Ingram, Kamara, Russell Wilson, and Jones.
Yeah.
I like the team, but I think there's a lot of risk on the team. You got ACL tear with Hawkinson, Deshaun Watson's a walk-in risk. Godwin and McLaurin are not really high upside value accumulator pieces. They're more complementary. So your value really comes from your wide receiver core with Jefferson, with Neighbors and those guys. And then at running back, I'm pretty concerned, because you kind of built out a competitive team without really investing in the running back position. And you're also The Ingram pick, I guess maybe it was just a falling value to you. It seemed a little unnecessary to me. I think I would have just backfilled with a
Agreed.
different tight end later on in the draft if your thought process there is Hawkinson's hurt, I need some guy early.
Yeah, I agree. I quickly want to point this. I can start 3 of the top 5 tight ends, and yeah, contextually because
Well, you can't though. Well, I guess you could in the
you can't,
flex or whatever, but
that's
like,
why. Yes. The problem that I have with that is this is a 3 wide receiver start league, and the value of wide receiver is getting pushed up dramatically in this type of format. So with you, because you have Romeo Dubs as your wide receiver 4, Calvin Ridley as your wide receiver 3, Pittman and Brown is a fine 1-2, but you just don't really have the firepower to compete at wide receiver, and the room already told you what they think of the valuation of the tight end is here.
yeah, Andrews was a fine pick. I have no problem with the
I
Andrews
agree.
pick. It's just like
Agreed.
if you saw Kelsey falling like that, you maybe should have bypassed Andrews and just went with Kelsey instead, or vice versa. You take Andrews and then you don't go with Kelsey. Ryan, he already talked about his team. We got Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. I feel like you got good value in all those quarterbacks. That's probably why you would have went with it. I
Yeah.
may have steered clear of Brock Purdy at that pick. I might have just gone with Jalen Waddle, or if you want to go with a running back too. Burrow and Prescott's a hell of a start to a competitive team. I might have just taken Christian McCaffrey there, to be honest, or Jonathan Taylor in that situation, because I think knowing that you could have backfilled with, I like the running backs you got, ETN, Kyron, and Kenneth Walker. I think those are all good values, but your wide receiver core, like Danny said, Malachi Corley is your wide receiver 3 on this team. So if instead of Purdy, you had taken Jalen Waddle, this team probably looks a little bit better.
Or vice versa. Let's just say you took Christian McCaffrey, then at the 4-6, you went with a guy like Rome Odunze or a guy like DJ Moore or a wide receiver in that spot. And I wouldn't have gone 3 straight running backs after going 3 straight quarterbacks, especially because, like Corey said, you're very, very weak at the wide receiver position. Like
Walker specifically, I might have gone Mike Evans or Devontae Adams or Pickens there instead. Just get another
Ryan Thomas as well made sense.
Yeah. Fletsky here. He goes CeeDee Lamb, St. Brown, McCaffrey, Tyreek, Diggs. So very, very strong flex positions here. Quarterback is a huge problem. Bryce Young, Aaron Rodgers, that's definitely not going to be good enough to compete. Again, maybe your thought process is, hey, I'll make trades after the draft. It's not a big deal. The quarterback position tended to fall a little bit, especially once you got outside those top guys. So maybe your thought process is, I can buy low on Geno Smith. I can buy low on Matthew Stafford to get by. But that's a lot of faith that you're putting in Bryce Young. So I'm a little bit worried about that.
Agreed.
The running back course, fine. McCaffrey, Tajay Spears, Nick Chubb, you probably backfill with some more guys. Goddard and Mayer is a solid duo. So all in all, pretty well-built team, but I maybe would have bypassed investing into Bryce Young, period, let alone investing into maybe Cooper Kupp at that 7-8 pick. Maybe I would have gone with, a Baker Mayfield or somebody like that, just to make sure you had a little bit more production at quarterback.
Yeah, the problem that I have in Flay, you're sure
you kind of just got screwed at a lot of these picks. They can't really blame you too much for the values that you got.
Agreed. The issue that I have, and I'm sure if you had known that Jaden Daniels was available, you probably also take him at the 3-8. So, especially given that you started 2 wide receivers. The problem that I have here is that at quarterback, you're just so far behind for a team that's trying to compete. And I'm not saying behind in terms of value, because I do think that Bryce Young is a potential value accumulation piece. I'm more so saying, can we confidently say either of the quarterbacks you have on your team can give you top 50 in production this year?
No, they're probably going to be drafted as QB 15 to 26 in ADP on Underdog. Like even Rodgers, like he doesn't have a great offensive line. It's just Garrett Wilson to throw the ball to. It's probably a run-heavy offense. Like, I don't know. It's not a great projection. In your spot, had you known how it transpired, maybe you go with Jordan Love instead of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're in a much better spot.
Yeah, or like I said, maybe you take Jaden Daniels there. I'm assuming you probably didn't know he was on the board because for whatever reason, Sleeper had the rookies only tab all the way to the end. But yeah.
King Jared goes Herbert and Little Herbert with Justin Herbert, Drake May. I think Herbert at 1.9 is pretty insane. So great value there. Bowers at 3.9, smidge early, knowing that I think the tight end slipped a little bit. I would have maybe tried to push Bowers to 4.4 at the very least and grabbed Waddle or something. But regardless, I like what you did with your wide receiver core. Very young: Collins, Addison, Franklin, Worthy, Downs, and then your running back Bowers. All tradable pieces or young upside.
To be fair on Bowers, he's making that pick with the context of knowing that Laporta went 2-11 and McBride went 3-1. So he's probably thinking of it as, well, this is the third of the top 3 tight end tier. I'm going to take the following value given the fact that this board favors Laporta at the 2-11 and McBride at the 3-1. If you view Bowers in that tier, I don't think 3.9 is all that crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think what I've noticed in startups in general is I like to be getting a really good value on tight ends because there's actually a lot available. And knowing that you could, like, after you get outside that first tier, Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, you see that those guys go high, you're thinking, hey, maybe I start a run here with Brock Bowers. But what I've noticed is, like, hey, if I don't go with Bowers here, I need him to fall back to me in round 4 to get the value on him, because TJ Hawkinson's going to fall because of his injury. Mark Andrews seems to fall a lot. Travis Kelce, if you're building a competitive team, is always available late. George Kittle and David Njoku are usually available late. So to me, it's more of a just like there's way more tight ends than we usually have. So I'm not really one to go high on tight ends in startups this offseason specifically. Last year, a little bit more likely to do it, but that's just my opinion. Chan Hughes goes Chase, Harrison, Tua, Jaden Daniels. Again, probably Jaden Daniels not likely there in most drafts. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kyle Pitts, James Cook, Christian Watson, David Montgomery, Geno Smith, Jacoby Myers, and Derrick Henry. No real complaints with any of these picks. I think you got good value on every single one of them. Somebody said Team 2 is absolutely stacked in the chat when the draft was going on. I really like what you did. Harrison and Chase, that's a hell of a start. You get worried that you're going to be behind at quarterback, but I mean, luckily Daniels fell to you in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, Shan, you killed this draft. Like, if you're a believer in Tua and you think that at this point, like it's more favorable that he stays within the top 3 rounds next year versus falling out, then at this point, I mean, you can make the case that across the board, maybe a smidge early on JSN, but I mean, I
don't think it was really early on JSN. 5.
That's fair. I thought that's at 410. My fault. Either way you slice it, I think you got value pretty much at the majority of your picks. So strong team. Obviously, Daniels fall into the 4-3. Probably unlikely, especially if you're doing a startup after the NFL draft where he goes top 5. But I mean, you're going to take it in the room. You were aware that you could click the rookies only tab, and you took advantage. Maybe that happened.
I mean, given your young team, you might have gone with Hawkinson over Pitts too. I know Pitts is younger, but knowing that you could wait a year, Hawkinson, in my opinion, is a better value asset than Kyle Pitts.
I like Pitts.
It's the same tier, but knowing that you're not going to be competitive this year, I actually probably would have gone with Hawkinson. But regardless, I think that's fine. You're swinging for the upside on Pitts. It makes sense. And then Jake Brown, last team that we're going to talk about here. Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, hell of a duo there. I would love to start my draft with those 2 guys. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Jaden Reed. Smidge early on Reed for me. I think that he's probably a little bit more of like a 6th, 7th rounder than he is a late 5th. Kincaid, good value there at 6'1". I think that's good on him. You take the falling value on Ladd McConkey and Adonai Mitchell, Bo Nix, Blake Corum. You kind of backfill with a bunch of young players. So very young team that you built out here. Minimal investment in the running back position. This looks like how we usually draw them up.
Yeah, amen.
For sure. So it's been about an hour and 11 minutes here. So we are going to sign off. Again, appreciate you guys for joining us. Appreciate you for sticking around to the end of this video. And of course, as I talked about throughout the video, if you guys want access to all of our rookie content, everything that we've done the last 2.5 months or a month and a half has been poured into the Dynasty Wall Street Journal. And the first edition of it, like we talked about, is now live on flockfantasy.com. When you use the promo code FSE, you'll get a number of benefits. You get first priority to Dynasty decisions. As you guys know, if you sign up annually, you get a free Zoom consult. You get all of the bonus content, not just our draft guide. Other creators on the site have also dropped theirs as well. So not only are you getting access to ours, you're also getting access to theirs. So a number of differing opinions that you can find there. Our trade calculator, as we showcased earlier in the video, all of our rankings. We're going through a big overhaul in the rankings update right now. It's going to be really, really exciting. We're going to make sure that those rankings are updated super, super often now because the process is going to be handled for us on the creator side of things. So very excited about that. Tons going on Flock Fantasy. If you guys are just curious, you want to get a free trial, you can do a 7-day free trial. Make sure to sign up with the link down below in the description to support us directly. But with that being said, appreciate you guys for joining us. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.